Welcome to the Weaving Magic podcast,
where we discuss the different ways to weave magic throughout your daily life.
We are your hosts, Alyssa, Lilly,
and Tara, Webb,
and we are thrilled to guide you in this magical journey of exploration and ritual. Welcome to the Weaving Magic podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa, Lilly.
And I am Tara, Webb.
And we have a fun episode for you today, and we're just going with flow. I've decided to shuffle and pull us an affirmation card.
Yeah, and what I have going in my head right now, I'm getting started. Getting started here. That's like what I have in my head, just playing as we're doing this. I'm like pumped up, hyped up on life at the moment. I don't know why. Well, besides like life's amazing, but like there's not this like defining factor of, this happened today. I don't know. I'm just really in a good energetic flow. So
it's funny that that's the song that went in your head, because my head, I'm hearing pump the jam, pump it up. Very different vibes. It's fine.
Very different. I would love for someone to, if possible, because I heard combining the beat of songs depends on how many counts there are. But if they could combine those, like how that would sound.
I have to think that through in my head.
Internet, make it
happen. Yes. So our affirmation is, I create mindful moments throughout the day, reminding myself that I am loved and miracles are natural.
Miracles are natural. Which is why we didn't want to have, I didn't want to have a topic today. And I kind of was like, come on, Alyssa, let's do this. Because I was curious to see how we would flow.
I know, and it's funny because I feel so much resistance in my body. I'm very much the person that's like, I need a plan. Here's the points I'm going to hit. I have to have something to focus on, but I'm glad that we're doing this. I love our friendship and how you challenge me in all of the best ways.
So for those of you listening, like we're always real, and it's not even scripted on the other ones, but we always have like a topic idea. We have something that we want to address, or like, hey, this would be really fun to talk about. Not today. Today it's just like really raw. It's raw dog, isn't it?
Your analogy is biting elephants and raw dogging it. Okay.
I like animals. I don't know. Question.
Do you?
Sure. So what's going on in my life right now is learning how to parent kids who are drastically different in the most beautiful way. And I say I have grown so much. I'm very proud of myself. I've grown in how I relate to my kids and how I show up for them. I remember like 4 years ago, Dominic was at the stage, I think he was about 4. So maybe, he's 8. So yeah, 4 years ago. Justin was deployed and I was more of a control person. I'm still a controlling person, but I've released like a lot. I was very much like the yelling mom. No, you can't do that. Don't stand on the couch. What do you think you're doing? Like just mad about everything. Because I was mad inside probably.
Do you feel like you talk to yourself in that way?
Oh, I totally did. Totally did. I had a better self-talk than I think most, just because I was starting to work on it. But it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you suck. It was never that at that point, at least. It was, why can't you do more? You need to do better. You need to have a clean, spotless house, like all of that. And the kids are just messing up your life in that sense. Because they're kids, they're going to. And so as Justin was deployed, Dominic had anger problems. Now I guess it should be a problem. He had anger that was really surfacing, and we didn't know how to address it. I didn't know how to address it because I wasn't addressing my own anger. So how can you help your kid? And he would hit me, but not like intention to hurt. It's that, that hit that kids do. It's like mad, but I'm not really wanting to hurt you. I just want you to see me. Right. So that I kind of reacted a few times of that. And then I was able to understand that as a parent, seeing their kid and, growing with it. And so when I say I've grown, like drastically. So now Dom is 8 years old, and he is going through this bouts of sneaking again, where he wants screen time and he sneaks food and stuff. And he's ADHD. And so awesome that Alyssa pointed something out with sneaking and how like the reason he probably is doing this. And I'm just showing up in a much better way with him. Having a serious talk with him yesterday and telling him like, dude, when you leave this house, like ever, we have no control over you. We actually have no control over you now. You know, how do you want to show up in who you are, right? How do you want to be that person? And then we have a 5-year-old who they're very similar, but where a Dominic would hit you or, you know, whatever, not to hurt. Elias is like, pow, like coming in hard. Let me express the anger and make sure you feel it too. Like, I want you to feel it. And, you know, that's the kid because they're just different people and they're little beings. And then we have Thomas in the middle of them two, who is 6. And he's just like, can we just all get along?
Oh, he's the pacifist.
He is. And I mean, he does like hit Elias when we tell him to, because he won't. You know, Elias will just like, you know, beat up on him. And he's like, I just don't want to hurt him. So currently dealing with like that and navigating as parents, you know, giving to each of them in different ways. It's so difficult.
And also the reflection of things that you don't know going through the process, right? Like, how do you navigate these emotions? Do we even know? How do you build these relationships with your siblings when you live in, you know, a tight space and you're around each other all the time and you do get angry? What's the healthy way to navigate that? And I find sometimes I don't even know the answer to that question.
No. And that's what I was telling Dom, is I'm not going to have everything right. Like, I'm not always going to know. I don't know how to handle the situation right now. Just doing my best. Because restricting doesn't work. You get more restricted, they want more of it, right? But then as they're learning and you're disciplining them in some ways, you then just can't continue to give them what they're sneaking. And it's just, there are no rules. It's just, you basically are learning based on what the kid is. And I'm also a firm believer that kids are a product of their environment.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean about me?
Well, and we talk about rules. It's so crazy navigating parenting because, like you said, there are no rules and each kid is going to be different. Right now, Aurora has been having, she's my 1-year-old. She has been having these outbursts of rage all of the time over every little thing. And I don't know how to navigate it because Lincoln, who's 3, didn't show a lot of emotion when he was a baby. And the most he would do is go, eh. And that was it. He would just kind of yell at you. But, you know, I sit her down because I need to make her a bottle and she throws herself back dramatically and screams. And I find us saying, oh my gosh, you're a lot, or can you tone it down? Why are you fussing? We hear all these things coming out of her mouth. So I'm like, well, she's going through a lot of really big emotions right now that she doesn't understand. Her brother doesn't want to share any toys with her. So anytime he takes something away, she's mad. And you know what? That's valid. I'd be pissed if people were snatching things out of my hands and telling me no all day too, right? But she doesn't know how to navigate that. And how do you even do that with a 1-year-old? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And Aurelius does that too, where he just like throws himself back. And the amount of times I'm sure Aurora has hit her head as well. Just like, pow!
Oh, hard.
I mean, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't. I guess it's like a sensory thing. I would be curious to hear somebody's thoughts who actually knows about child development, you know, what the throwing the head back is. Because, I mean, they don't do it to hurt. I think there's a sensory of like, you know, the falling backwards. I'm literally doing this with my head as I try to think about it.
It's fun to watch.
It is. Like what the feeling of that is. I know that you've said for Lincoln, it's like the upside down feeling, or what is it that you term it when he's like upside down, moving his body, like he likes the feeling of his body.
We do joint compressions with him where we'll squeeze his joints, and then we do upside down time, especially if he's got a lot of energy he doesn't know what to do with, throwing him upside down. And we do that with Aurora too. That usually when she's crying, there are 2 things that make her feel better: turn her upside down or stick something on her head. It confuses her and she gets distracted.
I like whenever it's cold outside and then taking them outside when it's cold. So like, whew.
Yeah. Whew. Gives them a second to be like, okay, I'm not upset anymore.
And there was something that Justin tried today with Elias, because Elias is having the outbursts of, oh God, it's just something you tell him, you know, no, you can't have any ice cream today because you didn't eat your vegetables or something. But why? And I mean, it's just like a huge outburst. And he just starts, melting down. And I don't think Elias, so something I've learned about ADHD, because I do kind of wonder if Elias has it as well. Something I've learned is that even though they're a certain age, you're technically supposed to take off about 3 years from that age based on their behavior. So for example, Dominic is 8 years old, and technically you would take off 3 years, I think, which would be 5.
We can math.
What is this? Yeah, 5. And Thomas is 6 years old, but doesn't have ADHD from what I can tell, at least. And there are times when Thomas acts, quote unquote, more mature, if you want to use that word. He's just a different kid and acts a different way, but in society standards, he acts more mature because he's more likely to think about his actions, whereas Dominic is impulsive and he immediately does it.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at Elias, who is 5, I think. No, he's going to turn 5. So he's not 5 yet.
You should know that.
I don't. I'm that parent. I don't even know how old I am. Like,
that's fair. I don't either.
I have to count it.
I want to pause real quick and just say I shouldn't have. I feel like that was a mom shame comment. I'm gonna call myself out on that. You are valid, and I know that you love your kids, and I didn't mean that in a harsh way.
No, I didn't take it that way because I should know. that is a should. But I don't, because they go back and forth and say like, oh, I'm 5. Because he's ready to be 5, and so I'm like, actually, you're not. And then he's like, yes, I am. And so technically, him being 4, you would kind of take off what they say 3. I would say like 2 years. So he's kind of acting like a 2-year-old. He's having his 2-year-old terrible twos. I don't really agree with terrible twos. But he's having that quote unquote time because that's his time now, because he never actually had, as far as I remember, terrible twos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to look at where they are now and like maybe age-wise versus their actual progression, how their brain's responding to things, how Dominic's reacting. And you see so much on TikTok now about like what normal people do, quote unquote. I'm like, that actually exists?
Like what?
I sent one to Justin last night that said, she was saying something like, I sent it to you as well, that said, how did your first tattoo feel? And
yeah.
Like, yeah. And it was like, oh, not that bad. Just like, when someone rubs your skin too much. What? I mean, yeah, like whenever you're looking at the lights and it hurts your eyes.
And the other person was like, no, that doesn't happen to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, or even they said, like the collars being too close. I mean, that's specifically why I didn't think about it, why I buy V-necks or like scoop or whatever, because I've never liked the feeling. I was like, oh, I just don't like it. It's just my personal taste. Actually,
no, it feels like I'm being strangled to death and I don't want it.
And it's not something you think about. You just like, oh, it's normal for me, or normal for me, but then not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. TikTok, like all the
things that come up.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
I'm sure you've learned a few about yourself as well.
Oh, on TikTok all the time, especially figuring out that I'm autistic and all, this adventure with Lincoln and his autism diagnosis, and, seeing myself and the things that I did as a kid, he is doing, but then we're learning that it's not okay. And it is okay, right? It's all perspective. He is learning and playing differently. I actually posted the other day, I found this, it's not a GIF, it's an image. I can't think of what it's called right now, but it's just an image with words on it. And it talked about how autistic play is still play. Like if they're lining up their toys, they're just playing with the toys in a different way. Just because it doesn't fit the standard of what you put on that toy doesn't make it any less play. There are no rules with play. So why is he being held to this standard, right? And I get that there are milestones that we would like our kids to reach in learning and development, right? To make sure they're quote unquote okay. But I just find it so weird that play, just the rules and rigid structure around play. I don't know.
Like, does it literally say autistic play? Like, is that how they define it?
Well, so what I've gone through with him is when he's playing with his toys, his puzzles, for example, he does them in order. So he does his ABCs in order, right? Mm-hmm. So when he's working with his speech and occupational therapist, they'll mess up his puzzle or try to get him to do it out of order. That initiates an anger response from him because they want him to get used to playing with puzzles in a way that's normal.
Oh, that just literally makes me have tears and like I literally just shook. No.
Yeah. Or he'll line up his cars, right? And they want to try to get him to line it up in a different order. And it's just,
what does it matter what order he lines up in? It's his fucking toys.
If he wants to line up his toys, line up his toys. I don't
it doesn't matter. Like, just because you think that your way with maybe the colors being spread apart, or you actually not choosing a specific way is better because for whatever reason you don't have to have a specific way. Like the mindset that, oh, just because we have to have specific ways, it makes it bad. It makes me think of kids wanting specific cups and plates. And hell, I have specific cups for every damn drink I drink.
And a special spoon.
If I can't find, it's been 3 days in a row where at nighttime to make my nighttime drinks, I can't find my mermaid cup. And I'm like, I can't make it. It's not going to taste the same. And Justin's like, what are you doing? I can't find it. And it irks me. And so for us to expect that kids can't have that, it just drives me nuts. I mean, I love my parents. They're here. And my mom like takes certain cups to use just whatever she wants. And they're just like, Twitch. Yeah, you can use that cup, Twitch.
But just kidding, that's my cup.
Right. But no, like that is ridiculous to me on the standard of, you have to change to fit into our society in this way. No, like it's literally his toy. Now, if he's playing with other kids, I can understand the idea behind like working with other kids. But if that kid's like this is the way I see it. If the kid's coming in and repeatedly messing up the way he's doing things, that's a bully, or at least a kid who doesn't understand boundaries. Yet you're teaching him as an adult, well, I can bully you. I can mess up what your boundaries are, and you have to accept it because you're autistic.
Yep.
Fuck no.
Welcome to the autistic experience.
I would be livid every day of my life.
Yeah. I will say there were some good things that he's learned through his therapy. I think the biggest thing has just been the taking turns and back and forth communication type of thing. But like, I've seen parents with kids, and autism, I think, is still a relatively new thing. And I don't think we realize how many people it impacts because it is such a wide spectrum, right? But I see a lot of parents, and again, this is no shame. It all comes to awareness and realizing what you're doing. But I see it so often where we pick our kids' chin up and look at my eyes when I'm talking to you. I need you to look at me when I'm talking to you. When instead we could say, hey, can you say this to let me know that you're listening to me, or find some other way to navigate that acknowledgement, because that's more for us than it is for them. We want to be sure they're paying attention, but maybe the eye contact isn't what works for them, especially autistic people, right? That's not where it comes from. I find that for example, when I'm talking to someone, I pay attention to your entire face, and I can dead eye look at you, and sometimes I look angry, and that's okay. That's just my face. But then when I go to talk, I look away because that's how I process. And so I don't know. It's just it's fascinating, all the things I've been learning as he's going through therapy, and really trying to be the best advocate that I can be when he can't communicate what it is he wants, right?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I do the same with when I'm talking. I look at things to like figure out my process, to figure out what I'm saying. And we used to be those people like looking at Dom and grabbing his chin. Well, Justin was more so because Justin was raised in that mentality of like respect.
I was raised that way too. Yeah. You look at people. Yeah.
Well, and I say that because even though my dad had that with my brother, I am a girl. I was a girl. And
I was.
Right. And I was treated differently. Totally. And I just gave respect immediately because that's what was expected of me. But I think Justin had it beat into him in some ways. Because even Justin and I were talking to Dominic about the way that we used to be disciplined. And, this is what parents do. And we're not saying that we're amazing parents because we don't do this, but it's just, so you have an idea of what was originally like expected of parents. And now we've transitioned to, well, don't cower. Because what he tends to do when we're talking to him is he will look down and curl himself up because he's like internally berating himself, or he's embarrassed, or he's upset. And we're like, no, 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 you don't cower. You hold your head high. Like you don't have to maintain eye contact the entire time, but you hold, like if you've done something that is wrong, quote unquote, like sneaking, you hold your head high and admit, yes, I did that and I shouldn't have. We're not going to cower. We're not going to hide because you take up space. And that's what we're teaching them. But it's still difficult because, I mean, we don't think about what we expect of kids, fully knowing we can't give that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't give eye contact. It makes me so uncomfortable. Yet that's expected of kids.
I mean, just even thinking about how kids navigate a school setting, we talk about like public schools and stuff, the way that they have such, you're doing science and then you're doing this and then you're doing that, and then okay, now you have to play, and just the way that's all structured, and holding the bubbles in your mouth and standing in lines. How would you feel standing in line all day and somebody shuffling you from room to room and telling you when you can play and when you can't play? That would be frustrating. That would be a very frustrating environment to try to navigate.
Well, and I've heard a lot about it. There's a book I want to actually read that talks about how school is actually meant to be the vehicle to make people listen, because it actually came along whenever they needed the farmers and like those doing their own things to come into the workforce, but they were used to just doing their own thing. They didn't want to listen. And like, how can we convince them to do what they're told and like follow cues? And so they started it with like little bells, also with kids whenever they had child labor and it wasn't as big of a deal back then. They had like little cues, and now you go do this and now you go do that. And so that started in schools. Like if we teach them in schools to do this, by the time they get to the workforce, they won't question us. And so that's actually what school originally started out being, not just teaching kids, but also how can we teach them and have a standard of what it is so that they don't ask questions.
I mean, look, we're getting deep. I mean, look at how we have this so deeply ingrained in us. I know for me personally, you go to school, you go to college, you get a career, and you stick it out, whether you're uncomfortable with it or not. Hence why I have quit my job and having this huge crisis at 30. I won't say crisis, we'll say metamorphosis at 30, is because it's taking me this long to realize that's not what I want anymore. But I stuck it out because that's what we're taught to do, right?
Mm-hmm. And there are so many times that they tell you, what's your next path? College? What's your next path?
What are you going to be when you grow up?
And they ask kids that too.
Yeah.
Like, well, I don't know what the fuck I want to be when I grow up because I'm not fully grown.
That's wild to me, they start asking that question at like kindergarten. And it's wild to me, even at a high school level, that to be making decisions like that, like I'm going to pay all of this money to go to college because this is what I want to do. At 20, I didn't know who the fuck I was, let alone what I wanted to do with my life. And not being taught that it's okay to change what you want to do with your life.
Yes. Well, and they also don't tell you that technically truck drivers make more money than some college graduates.
A lot of trade makes better money.
A lot of trade. And I mean, they got rid of a lot of trade schools. And I know I haven't done much research into this. So this is, take it with like, go do your own research about how that also is meant to increase the gap between the races, because a lot of people were pushed, who are Blacks and people of color into trade schools. And then now they're not as much, like trade schools aren't pushed as much in schools. And so it like increases that, because I think the mindsets around it is more difficult for the generational like traumas of people of color to get like into college, not to get in, but like to work in their brain, this is where I need to go, because of the generational traumas that they've had to deal with. Not saying it's not possible, because there are some amazing people who have just like knocked it out of the park and be like, fuck what everyone has said, and I'm going to do it. But even then, we all have like this massive college debt, no matter what.
Still paying mine off.
Yep. I don't know how long I'll be paying that off.
Honestly, this comes down to, talk about getting real. We live in a very broken system that is designed to divide and conquer.
which is why I enjoy coming on this podcast and just letting each of you know that you're so welcome to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And something I enjoy about my relationship with Alyssa, although we do agree on like most things, I think, but it's the idea that we don't have to always agree.
Well, and I think it's one of those things, it's not that we disagree, it's that we just do things different and we're okay with it.
Mm-hmm. I don't have to have someone who's like perfectly in alignment with every single thing I do.
And we don't have to argue about it when there's a difference.
Oh,
right?
That brings up a nice topic from yesterday that I was in the car with my entire family.
Oh no, tell me more.
And my dad said something. And usually when it comes to talking about like Christianity stuff, I think I've said on here before, I talk on his level in the sense of like, I may not use the word God and Jesus Christ and like that kind of stuff when I'm talking. Not to saying I don't believe it, I just believe it in a different way. And so when I'm talking to him, I use the words that he uses so we can understand each other and have a common language. And usually I don't engage. I'm like, yes, okay, even if I don't agree. Yes, okay. So he said something. He said something about eating vegetables and eating meat, and how in the Garden of Eden, we were all vegetarians. Adam and Eve were vegetarians. And then when the snake came in, when Satan came in, that's when sin came into the world. And that's when we started to eat meat. And therefore God made it okay to eat meat then. Okay. And so I said, wait, so you're saying eating meat is a sin? And he's like, no, God made it okay. And I was like, yes, but you're saying that God said it was okay to sin then, and saying that technically you're not supposed to be sinning because you should be vegetarian in that mindset. And he's like, no, because God made it okay. Therefore, what was his point? It was something like, it's a fallen world, we're going to sin anyways. It's like, yes, but you're supposed to be trying to not sin. It was this loop.
The logic is so insane.
It was the loop. And all I was trying to do was just understand and try to kind of show him his fallacy, but not. Like I wasn't wanting to be like, you're wrong. That was not my point. I was trying to understand what he was saying based off his own words. And he was like, well, I'm probably just not explaining it right. I was like, you're probably not. And that's okay. I just don't understand. And I'm going to leave it because you're my dad and we don't have to agree. I'm just going to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Justin's like, well, that was a healthy debate.
Oh, the comedic relief.
Meanwhile, my mom's in the background, and then Dominic's right beside me going, can we stop talking about this?
Oh, but I think it's good for kids to see healthy conversations, even though you're holding back a little bit and he's not really speaking what he means. It's good to see that you can have that conversation and move on.
I think that's important with parents too, for them to see, especially with their parents, that there's not always rainbows and butterflies, that I had someone that I roomed with in college who said her parents always went into a room and talked about their differences, which is very valuable. I would say is important to do, right? To not yell and scream at each other in front of your kids. But it also made her think that relationships had no fighting. That there wasn't any disagreeing. And so when she had that in her relationship, she's like, no, this isn't
what is this?
And so I think with parents, it's important to have disagreements and even to get upset, but not have yelling matches.
Yeah. Having healthy conversations where you may not meet eye to eye is good for your kids to see. I think so much it is this mentality of we must always have a united front as parents. And sometimes we don't, and that's okay. And kind of like what you were saying too, it comes back to you were parenting one way and then you talk to your kids, right? About how you are changing your ideology and your methods of parenting because you want to be better as a parent, and being open and honest about that. I think we need to do that with our relationship as well. Do you need to talk about everything in front of your kids? No, but you also don't have to hide everything.
Very much so. And
talking about that needing to sneak, right? Got to sneak those conversations.
Definitely. And I think that whenever we talk about See, and I've lost my train of thought now because my brain goes on like multiple little tangents.
That's okay. We're just gonna go with flow.
No, it's oh, so we do the thing where like if mom says something, you don't go to dad. Like we don't play off each other in that sense of like you're not going to put us against each other, because we're fully going to say, even if I say yes and Justin says no, and then he comes back and said, oh, mom said yes, then why'd you come ask me? Or vice versa. But there will be times when he's like, well, dad said no, and I'm like, why did dad say no? I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll be back. And then I go and talk to Justin, and I actually make sure the kids are not there when I'm talking to him. Like, go give us space. And so that's our way of coming back to it, of, approaching the topic and growing from that, right? Even showing the kids like, hey, we can change and make those decisions and it'd be different.
Well, and you can be united in that way, that you're taking the time to go talk to each other and to go figure it out. Like, hey, we have different answers. Okay, well, I'm going to go talk to your dad and we're going to get alignment, and then we'll come back and we'll tell you our decision. Like, I think that's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Disagreement is okay.
That's a very powerful statement. Disagreement is okay. I feel like that's my inner child.
Yep. Multiple truths can exist at the same time.
That's the other one, right? That in someone's head, I'm a villain and I can't change that.
Nor should you.
No, and I shouldn't try to, because it's going to happen, right? Their version of me is true to them. Is it true to who I am and who I know I am to be? No, right? But if I did something to hurt them and they didn't say anything, or maybe I just did it and didn't even realize it.
Maybe they didn't even give you the chance to respond, and that's their choice.
And maybe, maybe I did mean it and not even realize it at the time, because at that point I was younger me. Mm-hmm. Who knows? I'm the villain, and that's okay. And some people, I'm their savior, and that's okay. That's a lot, but that's okay. Yeah, I think it's something that we talked about in our last duo podcast. Is that what we call it? Where it's both of us, a duo?
I don't know. Sure. It is now.
Is that, oh crap, I forgot what I was going to say.
This is what happens when we go with flow. It's fine.
I have kids like yelling in the background of things.
It's distracting.
What was I saying?
I should also know the answer to this.
Welcome to the Tara and Alyssa show, which is this is like our everyday conversation of like, I really don't know what I was saying. I'm gonna go back and listen to this and be like, oh fuck,
there it is.
What I meant to say. That's what I meant to say. Well, I'm gonna close it out at that, because it's going to bother me, and my brain's going to keep playing that in the background until I figure out what it is. But
maybe we'll have to continue it on Instagram. Ooh. It's one of those things that, yes, follow us on Instagram and we'll continue the story. But it's one of those things with noises, right? One of the things my son is learning right now is his voice, which is beautiful, but he literally just walks around all day, all day. And I notice that I get triggered and it distracts me and I get frustrated, but it is not his fault. And we just get to navigate through that. Mm-hmm. We get distracted and it's okay.
So what do you think a fabulous challenge would be for this week?
We've covered so many great things.
I know a good one.
Okay. We
challenge you this week to schedule out, let's just say 10 to 15 minutes a day where it is not structured.
Oh, that makes my heart hurt, but yes, do it. It is so good.
Because it's technically scheduled, right? It's technically on your calendar, but you actually have nothing planned. Mm-hmm. And so that means that you do nothing, like aimlessly walk around doing, I don't know what I'm doing. It's actually good for your body to kind of be in that state, because you're not like hyper aware of things constantly.
Or give yourself that space to check in with yourself and see what you feel like doing in that moment. I know this is something I'm trying to do better with, and I've been scheduling longer lunches. And some days I have my lunch and I'm feeling like going outside and pulling out the sprinkler and playing with the kids. Other days I sit on the couch and read a book. And then there are some days where I just aimlessly walk around, and all are valid.
all are valid and actually very needed in that time and for who we are. So yeah.
We'll see you on the next one.
This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magic podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.